beautiful Borealis, the city of the sexiest sailors in all of Azeroth. If you've never taken a nice stroll through the Big B while you're waiting in queue, you're missing out. I know BFA had its problems, but I just love the Kul Tirans and Borealis and all that Daughter of the Sea stuff. And let's do remember that H-Pals were ballin', especially those first 2 seasons. Come on. I had always assumed that they would work in Kul Tiran Paladins. And as the allied races continued to stack up and the expansions went on, they just never have. And I don't really understand why. Look, they can practically be anything but a Paladin and a Demon Hunter and Evoker, obviously. I mean, even the Zandalari can be Paladins, but the Kul Tirans can't, and I have no idea. I mean, they could be Druids, for God's sakes. They can be everything but a Paladin. Are you kidding me right now? What if I really just clicked the shit out of this thing? Come here, that Paladin, you... Maybe there's a combo, up, down, left, right, A, B, A, B. I don't know. Someone figure it out. One of you guys figure all these ways to glitch the game and script it and bot it. Someone figure out how to make this highlight so I can make my Kul Tiran Paladin. Because this is ridiculous. This big meaty man in plate, let's see. Oh, come on. He would be so handsome. Oh, yeah. Oh, God. How is this not a thing already? When we have mechanomes and chihuahuas. I mean, just when you, and this hideous abomination. I don't know how anyone can play the throw up class. And can we talk about picking your race for a second in retail? I mean, the competitive community is always just going to pick whichever faction has the strongest racial ability in competitive content. So whether it's Shadowmeld, Fireblood, Orc racial, whatever Blizzard decides gets to be the strongest one that X-Pack, you're going to see that race class combo all over the ladder, up and down it, right? But some of us have very unhealthy attachment styles, and it actually does matter to us. And we don't pick it just because of the racials. We pick it because of the way it looks, the way the two-handed animations are. For those of us who really enjoy the world of Warcraft, the actual world, which for me is one of my favorite parts, just being in the art and being in the universe. And people are quick to dismiss that, like that's just the way you play or no one cares. But every time you get a metric that shows you the actual amount of participation in Mythic Plus or raid content, there's a ton of people that play World of Warcraft that really don't just want to spend their time repeating the same content over and over to get a higher eye level. There are. And when you're running around the world, can I just say how much it sucks to show up to these gorgeous capital cities with this rich culture and lore, and they're completely empty because Blizzard's stuck on this recipe where it's 4 new zones, 8 new dungeons, a new raid. We're going to screw with the talent systems and the Mythic Plus affixes again and wrap it all up with a sexy cinematic, and there's your new expansion. But the old world with Ironforge and Thunder Bluff, I mean, you can go to these cities and see there's not much going on. I always wish that picking your race actually made you a part of that racial culture. And this is probably where there's a big divide, because you have people that think that every race and class should be able to be everything. But there's also the argument that sometimes individuality and self-expression actually aren't the most important traits. Sometimes adherence to a culture and a tradition and being a part of something can have a unique and fun feeling as well. But when you just boil down your race class selection to what the best racials are, you miss out on a lot of that. further, as I said, when you travel around the world and see how empty these other faction capitals are, it doesn't feel like there's an alliance and a dwarf faction. It feels like everything revolves around Stormwind. I mean, we have to mourn for all the people that got a horde tattoo on their arm or whatever, right? Because now we're all just one big alliance. It's just a big get-along game. Being in the horde, there is no horde. It's just one big alliance now. And that sucks in some ways, yeah? I would love for there to be a cultural currency and maybe a stacking buff. If you're a dwarf and you're an Ironforge, maybe you get this stacking buff. There should be some encouragement for a race to be involved with its race's territory, lands, and capital city. When you go to Ironforge, there should be a ton of dwarves everywhere, and not just the NPCs running around saying the same 3 lines all day. And as of right now, that's just not the case. These basically just serve as placeholders to get shit done. And if you happen to be leveling from 1 to 20, you may interact with the capital city a little bit. But it's not long before you set your hearth to the new zone, the new hub, or whatever. And they're long forgotten. And that sucks to me. Now, we're all in the same town. And the only old world towns that are really used consistently are wherever Blizzard decides to put all the portals to get you around. And so in that context, of course, it makes sense that when you pick your race, you just really pick it for the racials and maybe the look. I had always hoped that with how adored class halls were, that they would continue on that path. You know, I give Tauren Paladins a hard time because it's just ick to me. And sun worship as a paladin is kind of weird. But I think each race of paladins should have their own class order and class hall. When you go to Stormwind, there should be a paladin barracks or chapel, and they should have their own culture. And in Thunder Bluff, they could have their own Sunwalker TP. From there, you would get weekly quest, or not dailies probably, but just like a weekly quest to go out in Tauren lands and be a Sunwalker and help out a village. Or, you know, you just have these quests that scale up like they have all over the place. And it makes you a part of that faction. You spawn your Kul Tiran Paladin and you have to come clear out this temple. I know this is a little shaman-y, so maybe this should just be the shaman area. But the idea is that you come in here, you clear this out, and now this is the new order hall for Kul Tiran Paladins. And then from here, you get quests to go on a ship and do an escort or run out into Kul Tiran lands and clean something up. And then you get this cultural currency. I mean, they love a new currency. So what's the deal? You would get very race-specific class gear. So Kul Tiran Paladins would have the option, of course, you'd still have all your old T-Mog stuff, but they'd also have the option to get specific Kul Tiran Paladin gear or Tauren Paladin gear. I just wish they would flesh this out a little more. But right now, cities are just giant pieces of art that are pretty much empty, other than maybe the inn and the auction house. I think they're missing out. I think there's, most certainly, I'm not trying to deny that there's people that just love to do dungeons over and over, and they love that challenging content, and that just drives them to sub and play the game. But it's quite obvious there's people that don't. And what are you building for them? In some ways, it's a real tragedy to me, because I think Blizzard creates beautiful zones, beautiful cities. I think it's one of the strengths of the game, but it doesn't seem like they have any idea how to really develop them in a way that encourages people to be around it. When you show up to Borealis, there should be Kul Tirans around, and so on and so forth. I just think they're missing a big opportunity here to make the world feel more alive and to make your choices as to your race or character be more than just, do I have Shadow Meld or every man for himself? Nothing wrong with that, and that's all it's ever going to be for a lot of people. But I think it could be more, and I think there's a part of your community that would like that, especially when you get into your RP communities. I was running around in Red Ridge and I saw these guys just RPing as a caravan across the bridge, and they had it all lined up, and it was awesome. They had little guys on rams and they were escorting them, and they were all geared out in the same way. And it was just amazing to see. And it was such a unique and awesome experience. And I thought, these are the people that I want to be around. It was such a cool experience, and I was so impressed. And I wanted to say something to him, but I didn't want to. I'm not real familiar with what the rules are, and I didn't want to break the scene. And so I just saluted and cheered, and then I just sat back and watched. And so my main point is, of course, that I want a Kul Tiran Paladin. But further and outside of just me, I think there's a real opportunity for Blizz here to flesh these things out and make it actually mean something more than just what's best in your content that you do. Of course, there's people that do pick their faction because of the way it looks or the culture. I do that. But even if you make that decision for those reasons, there's really no way to press into it. There's really no way to be a Kul Tiran or to be a part of the Kul Tiran culture. I mean, you can come stand in Borealis, but that's about the extent of it. And I think that's a huge missed opportunity. Give your players a playground and see what they'll do. Of course, a lot of people are just interested in eye level and UI setup and all that. And there's most certainly a part of the community that loves that. But what about the people that want to log on and be in the world, run around, quest, be a part of the factions and the lore? I just feel like there's not a lot for them. And when you have the ability like Blizzard does to make amazing worlds and awesome characters and character design, I mean, aside from like mecha gnomes, it seems to me like pushing into that ability could be a very good decision. And I think people would really enjoy it if they showed up to capital cities and they had players of that race just everywhere. I think it would really add to the game. I think it would be a great experience, particularly for those people that don't do in-game content. And also, if we talk about bringing the people that have branched off to the classic modes back into retail, then I think that's something they would very much enjoy, because there's people that enjoy the world that way. I know I do. And it's easy to be dismissive of that. But again, I just challenge you to look at the metrics. I mean, people always point to Mythic Plus numbers, but this doesn't account for a lot of these people play one of every class. I mean, this is a community that gets hardcore, especially at the higher level. And they play all day, every day. Extract that out and all their alts out, and that number, I mean, even if everyone has another alt, that number gets cut in half. And some of these guys, like I said, are running multiple classes. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's awesome. And they're incredible at the game. And it's most certainly the most popular form of in-game content. But what about the people that don't even give a damn about in-game content? Well, here you go. Give them a playground and an experience of being in the world, surrounded by other players in the world. And I got to tell you, those are some of my best memories on the World of Warcraft. I mean, dude, just take a look around. Look how awesome this is. Look at all this stuff. When's the last time you actually just strolled through a city and just saw how awesome it was? That's what I try to show you guys in my content. The magic of WoW isn't a 420 eye level. It's this. For a lot of us, this awesome world with this beautiful art and these amazing factions, and they just consistently avoid anything that dives into that. You know, I love so much about retail. From the systems, which I do participate in, both PvP and PvE. The class design, I think, for the most part, is a lot better than the 3-button specs in Classic, which I know is the appeal for some people. But for me, I like the interactions and stuff. Now, I think it could use a lot of tuning and balancing, but we all have our opinions on what should be done there. And I don't think Blizzard can ever make us happy. By the way, congratulations, Hunters. You know, I complained about Paladins, and they get buffed. I complained about Hunters, and they get an overhaul. And a pretty nice one. I mean, a real nice one. I might be dusting off mine once I get my Pally all geared up. We'll see, but I think we can all agree that I use my powers for good, and I'm happy to do it for you. I do love a lot about retail. I really, really enjoy a lot of things about retail, but it does at times feel like the developers dedicate most of their time in the development to a very particular group of people. And those of us who enjoy the world are kind of left in the dust. When you geek out like I do and run around in the world and you see how empty it is, it feels kind of hollow sometimes. I think there's just a ton of opportunity here for them to reach out and really encourage people who don't have the time or the energy or the desire to do in-game content to still come into the world, be a part of something cool and special, and have fun. That's it. And there's a lot of ways people do that. Like I said, there's people doing plus 24s. Then there's people running caravans in Red Ridge. I think those people should get some love too. But either way, I think we can all agree that Kul Tiran Paladins should become a thing as soon as possible. And I know I eagerly await mine. In closing here, I've written some words for that twinkle in my eye, Kul Tiran Paladin who's out there waiting for my love. Kul Tiran Paladin, I can see you. Your brown skin shining in the sun. You got your hair pulled back and sunglasses on, baby. And I can tell you that my love for you will still be strong after the voice of summer is gone. Vocal Home out.